A lot going on in the world of international football right now. Canada just beat the U.S. men's national team in World Cup qualifiers. Kylian Mbappe, after much rumor mongering, finally seems ready to move to Real Madrid. African Cup of Nations news, but we're going to talk to Liz Ward today, program director of Stonewall, Europe's biggest LGBTQ organization, about developments in recent weeks regarding homophobic chants that have mainly been targeted against Chelsea Football Club. Liz, thank you for joining us at Takeline.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks.
Okay, Liz. So recently, the Crown Prosecution Service ruled that the chant in particular was a hate crime. Could you bring us through those developments and what exactly the context for these decisions were?
Yeah, so this news broke about over the last couple of weeks, and it's really fascinating. So Chelsea Football Club, as many people will know, is based in kind of central West London, and the area of Chelsea is pretty affluent, but in the kind of 60s and 70s was a place that was populated by many young gay men who had to leave home because of their identity and found themselves working as sex workers in that area. And so what we've seen for decades is the Chelsea Football Club team, every time they are playing a game, every time their fans are around, there is a particular homophobic chant that is directed towards the players, towards the fans, towards the coaching staff. And it has been going on for quite literally decades. And what we've seen towards the end of 2021, so most of this season, is that we've seen this chant happening in stadiums, and we've seen a real tilt shift in how clubs have reacted to it. And what this has led to is that a couple of weeks ago, as you mentioned, the Crown Prosecution Service, so in the UK, they're the people that decide what makes a crime, have now denoted the this particular homophobic chant as a hate crime, bringing it in line with other forms of abuse that we see in our stadiums, so the kind of racism that we might see in our stadiums and things like that. And it's quite a unbelievable moment, really. I mean, in all my years of watching football, of my family's years of watching football, this chant has been such a fabric of many Chelsea games that I've been to see, that I've been in and around. And to have it denoted, I think, as a hate crime now, as opposed to a piece of harmless banter, which is how it's always been seen, this idea of it being a joke and banter, is really a big moment in football, and it's got a lot of people talking, for sure.
Recalling different conversations that have occurred around this chant over the years, like a lot of the conversation was, no, it is hateful. No, it isn't. It's part of the culture. So does this decision by the CPS essentially end that? Like, are people still arguing that, oh no, it's fine, it's just the culture of football, it's banter, blah blah blah?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the debate is still kind of raging as to whether or not it is offensive. And I guess my answer to that would always be, if you have to question whether or not it's offensive, it probably is offensive, you know? If people are upset, if the community is telling you that people are upset about it, and people are probably upset about it for a reason. Yeah. And as I say, the roots of this chant comes from very blatant homophobia towards young gay men. And, what we've seen is that players, even when they leave the club, even when they leave Chelsea, when they sign for a new team, they are still subject to hearing this chant in the stadium. So I think what this gives is that it gives a kind of validity now to many LGBT fans that have been saying for years that this chant is homophobic. The Crown Prosecution Service coming out about this kind of gives it that stamp of saying that it is so. And the statement that they gave around it was really hard line, that this is disgusting behaviour, that these are so-called football fans using this chant. And it's really been spearheaded by the chair of the Chelsea LGBT fan network, so Chelsea, also known as Chelsea Pride. Tracy Brown, who's their co-chair, has really spearheaded this, alongside Chris Powros, who is the chair of the LGBT Tottenham Supporters Network, so the Proud Lilywhites. And they've come together and they've shared lots of testimony about why this chant is offensive and why it's homophobic. And so now that kind of people power has seen that tilt shift that I was talking about. So hopefully it will put that debate to bed. But, some people just like to argue their way into a paper bag, to be honest with you.
Takeline is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the best, easiest way to play fantasy sports. Through Underdog's slick mobile app and easy-to-use website, you can draft your favorite NBA players in mere minutes and compete for cash prizes every single night of the week. Just head to UnderdogFantasy.com or download their app from the App Store / Google Play Store, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100 with the promo code TAKELINE. So what are you waiting for? Sign up with the code TAKELINE, get your deposit match, and draft your NBA Dream Team today and lift your leg on the competition.
Well, I guess I'm glad that it's finally understood that it is offensive, even though we already knew it was offensive, but nobody was acknowledging that it's offensive. So I'm glad to hear that. But can you explain Stonewall's Rainbow Laces initiative and how that allyship actually helps move things forward and how conversations help move it forward?
Yeah. So Stonewall, as you mentioned before, is Europe's biggest LGBT human rights organization. So we work with businesses, with workplaces, with governments, and we run campaigns. And it's like my total pleasure to lead on our sport work. And one of our biggest campaigns in our sporting work is our Rainbow Laces campaign. So that came around in around 2016. It's the first year we did it. And the clue's in the name, right? We just get people to put on a pair of rainbow laces to show that you stand up for LGBTQ plus inclusion. And when we started it in 2016, there was kind of a pickup through the football clubs, people getting more and more into it. 2017, we started working with the Premier League really closely. And year upon year, we've just seen that campaign absolutely explode to now we're at a point where when it's Rainbow Laces season, so it's around end of November, start of December, we just see every single football club activating, different sports activating. This year I had someone calling me up being like, Liz, we want to do a rainbow kayak. Can you sort us out a rainbow kayak? I'm like, I don't know if I can do that, but we can definitely get a sticker for the side of it, Yeah. But it's so simple because it just is a simple gesture that says, yes, I'm going to put these laces on and I'm going to stand up for the LGBT community that exists in our game, outside our game, in our stadiums, on the pitch. But it's actually more than just a gesture now, because we know that, certainly in the UK, LGBT hate crime is increasing and has been increasing year upon year. And it's now a statement more than just a signal of putting on those rainbow laces. So it allows allies to be a part of it. We see team captains wearing the rainbow armband, which is amazing. So it makes me very proud to be a football fan, actually, which, having years of being a football fan as a gay woman, it's not always the easiest thing to do, but I get very proud of our game when I see rainbow laces happen.
You mentioned that the team-specific LGBTQ groups that work within these kind of fan structures, Chelsea Pride, you mentioned, the Lily Whites, Pride of Irons for West Ham. I know that you're not a spokesperson for these groups, but could you describe how they work with teams to kind of make sure that discourse like this doesn't happen and that teams are as welcoming as they can be?
Yeah, I mean, you've really got to give thanks, I think, to the individuals that week in, week out, give up their time to run these kind of fan networks. It is always the unpaid labor often of individuals that care so much about their club, that care so much about their identity, that get out there, they get the rainbow flags in the stadiums. And now what is wonderful to see is that they're able to work with the clubs very, very closely. So, the way that a lot of our football clubs are set up, there's usually a diversity and inclusion team or a head or a manager that is out there speaking to the fan groups, listening to them, working with them, making sure that we're able to create fantastic content for Rainbow Laces season, but also to speak up when it's necessary. Like we're talking about the Chelsea chant, and Billy Gilmore, who is now playing for Norwich, although it's transfer deadline day, so who knows where he's playing at the moment, but was on loan from Chelsea to Norwich, and in I think it was around September, was playing down at Norwich, and the Liverpool fans, it was a Liverpool-Norwich game, and the Liverpool fans started this chant. And what was incredible to see is that a week after, you've got Norwich coming out with a statement saying, we don't accept this in our stadiums. LFC are coming out with a statement saying, we don't accept this in our fans.
Klopp.
Most importantly, exactly, Jurgen Klopp was sat down with Cop Outs, who are the LGBT supporters group for LFC, sitting down with them, having a conversation as to why we don't want to see this anymore in our game. And I'm like, oh my God, I would not have seen that, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So getting that linking that these unpaid individuals, volunteers have with the clubs is phenomenal to see.
So is that kind of what you had made a statement, something like you said, a quiet team doesn't win. So is that what you mean more so by a quiet team doesn't win, when you have people standing up or speaking out?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. We do quite a lot of sessions with academies and with young people, and somewhat cynically, I think sometimes the way to get to their heart quickly when they're young athletes is to talk about how they can win. They just want to win. They want to be the best. They want to get a professional contract. They want to be on it as soon as possible. And I talked to them about how, especially in football, it's a team sport, right? You've got to communicate. It's a quiet team doesn't win. But also in the world that we're in right now, if you are silent on these issues, if you are silent about race, if you are silent about LGBTQ+, then you're not winning either, right? And so yeah, I think the more we speak up about it, the better our game is going to be. So I won't shut up about that one, definitely.
Love
Her
it.
name is Liz Ward, and she leads the workplace empowerment and community engagement teams at Stonewall in the UK, Europe's biggest LGBTQ organization. Liz, thank you so much for joining Takeline.
Thank you.